We are here in Las Vegas for the grand opening of Universal Horror Unleashed. This is the first year-round entry for essentially Halloween Horror Nights, the legendary event that takes place at Universal properties around the world, perhaps most famous at Universal Studios Hollywood and mostly Universal Orlando Resort. But nonetheless, now Universal breaking away into these regional entertainment experiences. There's another one of these already announced for Chicago. There is a kids park and resort in Frisco, Texas. This is an interesting time for Universal breaking into this business. Of course, Disney did this a long time ago, or at least attempted to, with things like Disney Quest and some of the ESPN properties. But famously, those did not go well. And so here we are in Vegas, though. Halloween Horror Nights, the preeminent, the premier, the best in the world at Halloween events, at haunted houses, at whatever you'd like to call it. And so obviously there's a lot of hype around having a permanent installation anywhere, never mind in Las Vegas, a very popular tourist destination, especially for, I'll say more mature guests, not families. Universal Orlando has always been a more mature resort, I think, but certainly has appealed to families, and they've been trying in recent years to appeal more to families, but this is in the opposite direction for sure. Vegas is, plenty of families vacation in Vegas, but that's not the primary audience here. And so at least in that sense, it makes sense as a place to try this. Also, the location of the venue is Area 15. Area 15 is kind of hard to describe. It's kind of a large-scale art installation with various tourist attractions scattered throughout, one of the most famous being the Omega Mart from Meow Wolf. That experience, which I don't even know where to begin explaining what that is. But again, art installation with backstory and theme, and there's a mystery to unravel within it. Very much like a something you might find in Orlando. And then all in between, there's golf simulators and racing simulators and VR experiences and AR experiences and escape rooms and lots and lots of things like that, and food and beverage between as well. In fact, in this new section of Area 15 where Horror Unleashed is, the Museum of Ice Cream is coming soon. There's the Beast food cart. There's a bar. There's all sorts of venues coming. There's a donut and beignet place on the way. In the near future. Nothing as a date necessarily, but in the near future. So Area 15 has existed here for several years with Omega Mart as the anchor tenant. It's done pretty well, I think, with COVID and with the recent economic situation in the United States and tourism being down. It has suffered like the rest of Las Vegas. So things are not going great over there, but nonetheless, a second phase, an expansion, a Site B, if you will, has opened just across the street, and the opening tenant is Universal Horror Unleashed. So I just want to say off the bat, no matter how good or bad this experience is, I think it's going to be interesting to watch if this makes it, because Area 15 is not doing particularly well. Vegas is not doing particularly well. Whatever tourism problems Orlando had this summer are 10 to 20-fold in Las Vegas right now. So will they make it? Obviously, they're opening in August. This is pretty much the beginning of haunt season around the world. And so one would think demand will certainly be there throughout the fall into the holiday season. It's new also, which I think is going to help. I think Omega Mart, from when they opened, those first months and years after they opened with good word of mouth, people flocked. And I think you'll get a bit of that with this. But the question will be, a year or more out, is this still going to be there? And the reason I talk about this is because it is clear throughout the venue that Universal is not entirely sure if it's going to make it. But let me give you the basic idea of the concept. The concept is to put 4 Universal haunted houses or mazes inside a warehouse-style building, and in between you have a shop, you have a couple of bars, you have a table service dining venue, you have a few performance spaces, one large stage and a couple of small performance spaces. And then all in between that, you have scare actors roaming, or storytellers in some cases, roaming in between to bring, the travel space, if you will, to life. Similar to scare zones, if you go to one of the Universal Parks Horror Nights experiences. And so that's what this thing is. As far as ticket options, they have a single entry ticket. There's a ticket that's good for one run through each of the 4 houses. That has a timed entry, which means anytime. Their current operating hours are 2 p.m. to 10 p.m. That's not a misquote. This Las Vegas horror adult-oriented experiences hours are 2 p.m. to 10 p.m. 5 days a week. But there's a timed entry, and you get to do all the houses once, and then you could stay in as long as you'd like if you want to keep enjoying the food and beverage, if you want to shop, if you want to just interact with scare actors for hours on end. You could do that. That's not what most people are going to do. Maybe more of you watching are going to do that, myself included, but I think the general public will probably not digest this experience in that way. There's also an unlimited ticket, which is also has timed entry, but you get to do the 4 houses as much as you'd like between the operating hours of 2 p.m. and 10 p.m., depending when your entry is. I did not misspeak. That is true. The operating hours currently are the 5 days a week. They're open from 2 p.m. to 10 p.m. for an adult-oriented experience, horror experience in Las Vegas. Those are their operating hours. There are no late hours. It does not deviate from that. And 10 p.m. is even a little questionable, as we'll get into in a moment. So that's what they offer. That's a more expensive ticket, obviously. There's now a VIP experience they're advertising, which is thousands and thousands of dollars if you want to skip the line and private bottle service and all that kind of stuff. I won't get into that because we didn't experience that, but it is available if you would like it. Either way. So, let's go through this experience. Let's talk about it from start to finish. First of all, you have to, you enter the expansion of Area 15. You have to walk through what is right now an abandoned mall, essentially, because none of the tenants are open yet, except for like a merchandise stall and a bar. And so whenever you arrive, sometimes there's a queue outside. There's an inside queue, too, that goes to the security space. But the building looks like a warehouse. That's the story, is that it is a warehouse. It's Warehouse 25, which is labeled in the queue to the security space. Security is very much like Universal Parks and Resorts. There are metal detectors. There are bag scanners. You put your bag in the tray and it goes through, which is great. Always works well. It's a speedy way to do it. And you'll be through pretty quickly. I will say, rules are changing all the time. So when we got here, filming was not allowed, but they let cameras in because you could film. You couldn't film in the houses, but you could film the common spaces in between the houses. So everything between the houses was open for filming and photography. So people were allowed to bring cameras in. Then day 2 began. The security woman screamed at us that you can't bring cameras in. And I'm already in the queue, and I'm like, I brought cameras in yesterday. I have everything I brought yesterday. Okay. Go through security. They look at the cameras. They say nothing, and we go in. Then what happens magically inside is, despite the fact that the signs outside say no filming or photography, the signs outside of each house say no filming or photography, they had taken down the secondary sign. So there's the way the houses are set up here. There is an exterior queue that's sort of in the common space inside the warehouse. Then there's an interior queue which starts to take you really into the story of the house, and then the house begins. So before the house begins, in that interior queue, there was a sign on opening night that said no photography or video recording, something to that effect. Those signs vanished on night 2, and so we kind of looked at each other and went, can we film now? And we asked a couple team members, and they said, yes, you can film now. And then I proceeded to film Texas Chainsaw Massacre, and a security guard stopped me and said, you can't film the house. And I said, we just asked several people, and they said filming is now allowed as of today. And the security guard just goes, oh, okay. I was like, if you want me to not film, I'll clarify again outside. I don't want you to get in trouble, blah, blah, blah. And he's just like, no, it's fine. And I was like, oh, okay. And then we went in and filmed the house. So even the communication between team members on it is not great, and rules seem to be constantly changing. They said in the queue with the camera situation, in the security queue, that we'd have to return stuff to our car. We didn't come with a car, but it's worth noting, I did see there are lockers behind a rope in the area after security, which I assume is for confiscated items or items that aren't allowed. If you don't have a car to put them in, I think security will take you to a locker and let you store it there until you're done with the experience is my expectation. But I can't confirm that. Once you're through security, there is a ticket window. There's one facing out into that area and one facing into the actual experience. And then there's the little queue where you scan in and you enter Universal Horror Unleashed Las Vegas. You enter into it's a big warehouse. It's you can see now. We know famously from doing the Unmasking the Horror tours in Orlando that there is a gigantic storage facility in Orlando full of pretty much every prop they've ever used that has survived at Halloween Horror Nights. This seems like a great opportunity to utilize that extensive breadth of propping that they've kept over the years, because the warehouse space in the middle is just covered in nods to the past, but just a lot of props that I guess they decided we may not need this stuff in Florida anytime soon, so let's just put it here. And the warehouse theme, Area 15 looks like a series of warehouses. So, look, is it the cheap and easy way to theme stuff? Yeah. If you talk to a theme park designer that works for Disney or Universal or whoever, they'll always tell you whenever you see crates or boxes, things like that, that usually means the budget ran out and there was space to fill. When you pick a warehouse as a theme, similar to like if you have a studios park and your theme is, sound stages, it's usually a cost-effective way to theme. So it's like, well, it's a warehouse. It's themed to a warehouse. But warehouses also, are considerably cheaper to build than the Wizarding World of Harry Potter or Pandora, the World of Avatar, or Star Wars Galaxy's Edge, or, How to Train Your Dragon Isle of Berk in Super Nintendo World. It's an easy space to dress. What I'm taken aback at is the fact that the propping is not more permanent than it is at a Horror Nights event. Those of you who are like me, who buy a frequent fear and go to Horror Nights a lot in a given season, you will see over the course of that season, props get ripped off, props get damaged, things get destroyed because guests are in the space. That's what happens in a theme park. If it's within reach, a guest will grab it and something will happen to it if it's not sturdy enough. All the propping throughout this is just plain old Horror Nights propping, which is usually meant to last, was it 2 months event? August, September, October. Yeah, roughly 2 month long event. This is not a 2 month long event. This whole thing's supposed to be there. And even if the houses change on the regular, which I'm not sure they're going to, the stuff in the common space between in the warehouse is the same quality. And one would think maybe they're not going to change that all the time, but maybe they are. I don't know. Either way, it's not going to last. Like on night 2, we saw props missing from the Exorcist Believer queue. So I find it hard to believe that the Horror Nights team involved in this didn't talk to people in creative about, well, how do we make something more permanent than what we usually do? Look, and there's a magic and an artistry to Horror Nights in that they throw together something that is really beautiful for something that is thrown together to last 2 months. And that's the magic of Horror Nights. But that magic is not the case here. You've built out a physical, permanent space that doesn't have to be torn down at the end of October, early November. And so those rules shouldn't apply. So I find it hard to believe there was no one at Universal Creative that came in and said, hey, you guys going to make like more permanent propping or better attached propping or permanent walls or any of that stuff? And I find it hard to believe that feedback wasn't given to them. So I would be very intrigued to watch the next couple weeks and months how this all holds up. Right now it looks great. But it looks like Horror Nights. It looks like every Horror Nights event you've been to in Florida and Hollywood. The same exact quality, which is not a bad thing for a temporary thing, but I think we expected, we're like, oh wow, imagine what would happen if the Halloween Horror Nights team was given a permanent venue and they could build things out permanently, like build things with real structures and, the way like a theme park attraction. Think of Horror Nights, but with the budget or the materials used in something like a, Wizarding World of Harry Potter land. And I think that was very exciting. And then we walked in and realized, no, it's just Horror Nights in a warehouse. So that was surprising because I think every fan every level of fandom of Horror Nights agreed that that was the hook of this, was it's so cool that they're going to build something that has a permanent quality. Now, the other side of it is Horror Nights 365 days a year, but that's not true either because they're open 5 days a week. But was it 300? 300-ish days a year. My math is probably horrible. But 300-ish days a year you can experience Horror Nights. You can experience Horror Nights during the off-season of Horror Nights. That's the other side of this. And that part is at least true. That part is at least true. Quickly, my favorite part of the whole thing is the common space in between. I love that it's populated with a lot of original scare actor characters and storytellers. Unfortunately, in 2 nights of visiting, I didn't get to talk to them at the length I would have liked to. So if you're big time into HHN, I think you're going to want to come multiple nights and probably spend time talking about lore and having conversations with these characters, because there's representatives of the legendary Truth. They're asking you to report any strange things you might see, and my immediate response was, there's a lot going on here, sir. There is in front of Universal Monsters house, there's a mad scientist who's created a beast, and it's like some bug man hybrid thing. There is a vampire queen of sorts with her minions, and also I think the highlight is there are vampires on on a track that fly above you in the entry space of as soon as you walk into Horror Unleashed. There's also like I don't know if it was the Bugman. Someone jumped out at me right around the first doorway. Someone jumps out. I was like, they've established there is no safe space in this building. That's the other fun thing, is it's essentially Horror Nights unbridled in that every inch of the space a scare actor can come and get you. Even in the restaurant, there is an opportunity to be scared. I'll try not to spoil too much early on. But I love, there's a boiler bar, which is just this giant boiler that has like a creepy face and kind of pipe fingers reaching over. It's really pretty. There is a Jack bar, of course, Jack the Clown, the most famous first icon of Halloween Horror Nights. You could argue, original icon, I'll say, right? The Crypt Keeper is the first actual icon, but he's IP. So he has a bar in the back, which is attached to the back of his show space. And then there is a table service restaurant, weirdly enough, that is Blumhouse themed, called Premier House. Now look, I think people thought that was a weird choice, but if you experience Area 15, between Omega Mart and all the other things, there are table service restaurants. There's a sushi restaurant, and there's also the Beast, which I think is very, very good for the food it has, and being in the middle of a tourist mall, essentially. So I don't think it's that weird that there's a table service here. I think especially if you buy unlimited, maybe you want to do the houses 1 or 2 or 3 times. You get a reservation, go sit down and enjoy some drinks, some bites. There's a counter service also called Rough Cuts that serves barbecue. It's themed to Texas Chainsaw Massacre. We didn't experience that, but it's essentially a couple of barrels in the middle of the floor and a service window. It's nothing fancy. The boiler bar is cool. It's got a lot of seating. It's huge, but it's right in the middle. And I love every so often the boiler will go off and steam will emerge, and they use that to fill the room with fog. And then the Jack bar it's essentially a bunch of shipping containers. Again, nothing feels very permanent. Nothing conveys we believe that this is going to last. It very much conveys we don't know how this is going to go, so we're going to play this safe. So look, like the space works. It works, but it doesn't feel like they believe this is going to be there for that long. The money was not given to prove that they are confident that this is going to be a cash cow for them. It's pretty obvious, like the warehouse itself was not custom designed for them. The ceiling is very high, and there is nothing in the building that reaches the upper echelon. There's nothing in the building that reaches the highest heights of this warehouse building. It's taller than a soundstage, I think. And so it is clear to me that similar to the rest of Area 15, these were not custom built spaces. There were big spaces available, and Universal decided to be one of those tenants. Either way. So for that Premier House experience, you do want a reservation. They'll eventually be available online. Right now, the online reservations aren't working as of recording. They might eventually, but right now what you should do is the moment you enter is when you should go make your reservation for whatever time you'd like to dine there, because they do have limited availability. The other places are all walk up. The Jack Bar, Rough Cuts, Boiler Bar, all just walk up to. And if there's no seats, they do have somewhere you could just order a drink and take it away. Now, it's worth mentioning, Premier House, you can't take anything away. No takeout. It's a Pizza Moon situation all over again. Separately, we have a food and drink review video. I'm not going to talk about the quality here. That's a separate video. We tried every single last item at Premier House, and we tried every cocktail in the building. So every specialty cocktail throughout the entire venue, all 3 locations. So please go check that out. But talk about, again, I started on the scare actors in the middle of the floor, and then I got distracted, of course. We talked about there's the Vampire Queen and her minions. There's the Mad Scientist and her creation. There is a chainsaw-wielding monster that's not Leatherface that hangs out outside of Texas Chainsaw Massacre. There is a victim that runs around, which is pretty convincing, except for the fact that she was wearing my Universal Studios windbreaker I got in Florida, the one with the old logo, which is pretty cool, but she was wearing that at Universal Horror Unleashed, which someone might wear it to there, I don't know, but she was spectacular and it was really fun. But my favorite character there is just this, he wears a ski mask, there's just this like crazy murderer guy, and she's like telling us, watch out, you got to be careful, they can get you anywhere in this warehouse. Oh my God, oh no. And then he comes and she runs off screaming, and the murderer looks at us and goes, was she bothering you? And we had a lot of fun interactions with him like that. He would like come to try to get a seat at the table service restaurant. He would go up to the podium and try to check in. He would watch some of the other acts and make funny comments throughout the space. He's just a lot of fun. Like, I've seen him photobomb a lot of people, and he's just having a good time. On the second night, we noticed there was a scary nurse. There's also like a video projection of some bad surgery going on, some murderous surgery by the bathrooms over there. And yeah, then there's Rough Cuts. There are a couple of, so there's a stage show with Jack and Chance, which is very reminiscent of I believe it was called Carnival of Carnage, was the show in Orlando that Jack the Clown and Chance hosted. And it's basically that show slightly modified for Vegas. The storyline being there are 2 performers who they took off of the Vegas Strip, and they're making them perform for their lives. So you may see someone that does a hula hoop act. There's someone that does like a flag or streamer twirling act. There's a break dancer. I don't know. Very talented people. But so it takes on a variety show format. And then, of course, there's also Jack and Chance's Maniacs, the dancers. We're the Maniacs, too, I guess, in between. But it is essentially, in many cases, that show, but with less of interest. The Jack and Chance performers, the dancers, everybody in the show is super talented. So the way the show in Florida ended, I remember there were like very interesting kills. In fact, I remember a human gets put into a giant blender and blended on stage, and it's actually a kind of an impressive effect. And in this one, all they do is, it's like, okay, everyone's going to die, and they just take out, why am I blanking on the word here? But, when you jumpstart your car battery, what are those called? Are they plugs? Whatever they are. That's all they do. They just electrocute both of them, and you're like, oh, okay. But that again gets back to like we didn't know if this was going to succeed, so we played it safe budget-wise. So it's a fine show. I do like that after the show, in some cases, you can meet Jack and Chance, which is something that has really never been offered. And if you're a Horror Nights hardcore fan, the price of admission might be worth it just to get your, that photo with them, which Again, who knows how long this is going to last? Maybe it'll last forever. Maybe it won't. So it's a rare opportunity to meet and get a photo with them. They're above you on the stage and you're below. But that opportunity exists. What I like about the show is it actually starts in the bar behind. So they have a whole catwalk that goes through the bar and then over to the other side. And it starts in the bar, and they pick out volunteers to be those who will vote or for the stay or slay of the performers in the show. But there's a whole like 3 or 4 minutes of show that happens in there. And then even on the way out, they kind of stop there. So if you're in the bar, you get a little bit of a different experience from what people are seeing out in front of the stage. But it's a fine show. It's not very creative. It's regurgitated for the most part, but then it loses some of the most interesting parts of the show they copied off of. Then in between shows, things will happen. There is inside Premiere House, Megan will come out and dance to Femininomenon by what am I blanking on her name? Chapel Roan. So that happens in there. Some of those performers, those side act performers, and some of the dancers from the main show will appear. There's a very small stage between Scarecrow the Reaping and the Jack Bar, where we saw the streamer twirling guy, and also one of the dancers came out in a straitjacket and danced in the straitjacket. There's a tap dancer with blood all over her that came out, and she performed over by a little office window thing by the restaurant. There was another scare actor over there. I don't know what she was, but she looked like she was related to Scarecrow. She looked almost like a farmer. Almost a little bit Rosie the Riveter in costume, but I assume she was related to Scarecrow. Didn't get to talk to her, didn't really see her scare anybody. Then in front of Exorcist, there is a possessed exorcist girl. I don't know if it's supposed to be one of the ones from the movie. I think it's just a generic one. But then across from her, because you're in the prop storage area, there are mannequins, a bride and a groom that are alive that pop out at people as well. There's a lot of, I may have missed some, there's a lot going on. So I like that the whole space feels alive, which is wonderful. I just wish everything, scenic-wise, things were taken to another level. They just kind of weren't. Just feels like something that's been temporarily slapped over space, which is what Horror Nights is in other places. But it's weird here where it was supposed to be a permanent installation that they didn't really go for it. And real quick, I want to talk about the houses. Say real quick, this is the meat and bones of the experience. So all 4 houses are repeats. They're houses that have been done before. Universal Monsters is in most cases a straight repeat of the 2019 Universal Monsters house from Orlando. Scarecrow the Reaping is, per my recollection, a lot of the 2017 house in Florida, but it's probably also a bit of the Hollywood house from a couple years later. But my memory of the 2017 is a long time ago, and you only get to see houses so many times. They only exist for one season and then they go away. But a lot of it is very reminiscent of what I recall of the Hollywood, version of that. A Texas Chainsaw Massacre seems to be mostly the 2021 Florida house. And then Exorcist Believer, both houses were somewhat similar in Florida and Hollywood, but it seemed pretty much like the 2023 Florida house for that movie as well. What takes me by surprise here is, again, in a lot of cases, they are straight up just the houses they were. And in the case of Universal Monsters, they built a beautiful interior queue space with the busts of each of the classic monsters. Tremendous space, and the Van Helsing grave. Really, really cool. But then inside, most of that house feels just like it's the house from 2019, scene for scene. Some little downgrades, I feel like. In some cases, there are things that are missing. My biggest complaint with the overall experience, and this could just be my brain, I don't know. Everything seemed much brighter than it did when I've seen these houses in the past. I know we're in a dark environment for hours on end, so maybe your eyes adjust, but I don't think that's the case. I think very much it's bright. It's very bright in here. So you don't, like, I don't know, it was just so easy to see everything that it was hard to get scared for me. But also, the problem might also be that these are houses I've done before. So I kind of remembered where the scare actors were. So that combination didn't work well for me. But there were things that just didn't look good because the lighting was so bright. So the ending of Universal Monsters is, spoiler alert, essentially the statues of the monsters have come to life, at least the Wolfman, Dracula, and Frankenstein. The masks they're masks of those characters, but they're painted in like to look like stone, but they don't look good, and they're very well lit, and you just look at them and you're like, oh, I can see that's a rubber mask. That's not very convincing. But it's usual. I mean, it's not, the house is not less pretty than it was, or less beautiful than it was in Florida. What I will say is, like, it just, from my recollection, it felt like things that made these houses super interesting were missing in a lot of them. Some were a little better. I think most felt slightly worse, but if you don't know what you're missing, it may not matter. If you've never seen these houses, it's probably not going to matter. Eric Morton made a great point when he said, I just feel like the whole house, all of the houses were just boo-ho, boo-ho, boo-ho. And that's very true. A lot of it's just people coming out of, there's like three kinds of scares in the houses, which is either there's a very clear hole in the wall, behind a door, or like, I forget what the third one I was going to point out is, but just people screaming at you. There was nothing creative. None of the scares were super creative. There's a lack of ingenuity. There's a lack of innovation, which has, I think, been a thing we've noticed a little more at the main event Horror Nights over the last few years. Is I think every year we used to see things that were, I've never seen that before. Oh, the puppetry's at a new level. Oh, this, oh, that. This all feels a little stale. It's very basic, which may work for Vegas tourists. It may work for a basic tourist. It's not going to work for Horror Nights fans, but it'll work for a basic tourist for sure. So, I mean, that Universal Monsters house, one of my favorite of all time, and it felt slightly less good, but still really enjoyable. It's still fun to look at and go through. My all-time favorite house is Scarecrow the Reaping, and I was super disappointed. It just felt tamed. It was too bright. There are some moments. There's a Dust Bowl like twister scene in here that's done with smoke and a wind machine, and a scare actor comes through that fog at you, and that's fantastic. The corn maze at the end is the most spectacular version of that scene that's been pulled off, but it's weird. There was no scare actor at the end either day. Look, these are the first two nights. There's going to be changes. There may be things that weren't ready yet. I hope these things get better or are improved, or maybe they're just not fully realized at this time. But yeah, I don't know. It didn't wow me the way it did. Like, I saw Scarecrow in 2017, and that was clearly the house of the year, and it was one of my favorite houses of all time. I saw it again in Hollywood, and I was like, man, I remember why I love that house so much. That's spectacular. And then we went through it in Vegas, and I was just like, did I misremember that? I know I didn't, because I love that house so much. It was just okay. It was just all right. I don't know, part of it is very few of the scare actors seem to get into anyone's space. They all just stayed back a lot. There were like two scare actors, like one of the Texas Chainsaw Leatherfaces and one particular scare actor in Believer, like really were getting like arm across the pathway, or in the case of Texas Chainsaw, like coming out in the middle of the path and coming at us with the chainsaw, and that's great. Other than those two scare actors, people were staying like in the boo hole, like there's like hello, and then that. There's a lot of that, staying in their space and not coming towards you. And look, they don't really know this Vegas audience. People, it's a town where people like to imbibe. People like to drink a lot and enjoy themselves. And you don't know, sometimes people, you got to worry about the safety of the scare actors. But I worry that they're playing it a little safe here. And I don't know. I know how the HHN fans are going to respond. I don't know how the general public can respond. The general public may not care. They may think like, oh, those were pretty houses, and I got scared a couple times, and that was a fun night for $69. That was good. And I think that's generally what the review is going to be. I think people are going to go there and be like, oh, that was a fun couple hours. That was a good time. I'm glad we did it. And I think that's the general review. The Horror Nights fan review might be a little different. So yeah, Scarecrow, Chainsaw, Texas Chainsaw Massacre felt pretty much the same to me. It's a good house, enjoyed it. Exorcist Believer is the one that I think is vastly improved. Vastly improved. For a number of reasons. I think this is the one where it did feel like they had an opportunity to make a couple more permanent changes. Some lighting elements in the floor and such feel that way. They don't feel temporary. But maybe the idea there was, oh, this floor lighting thing didn't last long when we did it in Hollywood or Florida. Let's do it more permanent so it actually makes it through however long this house is going to exist. What makes me so the two coolest things about Horror Unleashed are, number one, show moments, and sometimes they happen and sometimes they don't, and some might already be gone. But there are show moments where a number of guests are gathered in a single room and something happens. In Universal Monsters, the Dr. Frankenstein will gather you all in the room, like maybe 2 or 3 groups of guests, and he'll pull the switch and the monster will come to life and come at you. And then they'll let you leave the room. In Texas Chainsaw, they closed a door on us at one point, and Leatherface came out a door with the chainsaw and was cutting up a guy and then started to come after us, and then finally the door opened and we got to leave. On the first night at Exorcist was the coolest one, where people gathered in a circle around the room during the exorcism, and she's sitting in the chair. One of the girls is sitting in the chair, convulsing and having a moment, and then charges out of the chair at people, and people freak out. Really amazing moment. I don't know what the one in Scarecrow is supposed to be, but the wow moment in Scarecrow is that Dust Bowl twister thing, and I think that if you don't have a stop show moment in that house, that works fine. It's a big wow. So I love that, and the other thing that everyone's going to love is pulsing. For those that don't know what pulsing is, pulsing means you send individual groups through the house in timed intervals. So every however many seconds. I wish we had actually counted. We didn't end up doing that. But the pulsing means, so if Eric went ahead of us and said he was a party of one, they sent him through alone. Now, you might catch up in those 15, 20, 30 seconds to the people ahead of you, but at least for a little bit, you can be alone. There are also no team members in the house rushing you along. That doesn't exist here. So you can walk at a nice slow pace. We were even being timed on night one, and the team member with us timing us said, take as much time as you want. I'm not here to rush you. I just want to see how long it takes people to experience the house. So those are wonderful changes. The fact that this is a lower capacity experience where you can pulse people through. If you want to go through houses alone for the first time in your life going to Horror Nights, you can do it. But also you get that personal experience with your group. It's just like the 4 of you, and it also ensures that you get all of the scares available at that time. Now, there are times just like real Horror Nights where people didn't get to work on time, or they asked for time off and no one filled in, or whatever the case may be. You're going to notice, especially around the 2 o'clock time, we noticed some people were missing. But then even late at night, there were people missing again. So I would say at the very beginning and the very end of the night, your results may vary, but you'll get all the scares at least available in the house this way. And the scare actors were trying very hard to make sure each group got their scare. Even if eventually you would pile up in times at houses, if people were going real slow ahead of you, the scare actors were able to switch gears. They were able to go from, okay, every 15 to 20 seconds, I'm going to pop out at each group, to, okay, it looks like people have backed up. I'm going to, every few seconds, hit this scare so everybody gets it. That's wonderful. The pulsing thing, because of the capacity they have, is wonderful. It's one of the main reasons as a Horror Nights fan you want to come to this. It is a very personal and very fun way to experience these houses like never before. That and the show moments make this stand out. And look, I think as a hardcore Horror Nights fan, it's worth coming to see this thing. I think you'll be intrigued. I would say maybe do it outside of Horror Nights season, if maybe at the halfway point, sometime in the spring, you're like, I miss Horror Nights. Let's take a trip to Vegas for a weekend and go check that out. And it'll scratch that itch really well. I don't think the houses are as good as their original incarnations, but they're probably good enough to scratch that itch. That combined with the overall experience with the storytellers and scare actors in the middle, the overall vibe, I think you'll have a good time. But I think even talking to some of the more hardcore fans the first 2 nights of the event, it's clear that it's not made for us. It's made for the general public, and that's okay. So it's not the end-all, be-all of HHN experiences, which maybe when this was first announced we thought it might be. But I think the case is still very much true that the real event, the Orlando and Hollywood events for real every year are still the mecca, the peak of this thing. And Horror Unleashed this is very experimental. They're going to see if it works. They're going to see if people show up. And we'll see how it goes. But for now, it's a solid experience. It's just a little disappointing that it's not beyond the regular Horror Nights experience, given that it's a permanent installation. That was surprising to me. But maybe people expected them to just be the normal houses with, the open ceilings and, the very temporary propping and all of that. That's. Your expectations have to be, I'm going to Horror Nights, and not, I'm going to a permanent, Horror Nights physical location in Las Vegas. It has to be that you're, just like you're going to Horror Nights. That's where your quality expectations have to be. So overall, I think they did a good job. I think it's fun. And like I said, I think the tourists will like it. Hopefully they show up. I think, to scratch that itch in between, Horror Nights seasons, I think it's a fun idea, whether it's this one or when Chicago opens. I think hardcore Horror Nights fans will have a good enough time. Just make sure it's not like the only reason you're coming to Las Vegas. Plan other cool things to do. And we'll have a video coming out in the next couple days or weeks where I have a lot of recommendations of things for those who love themed entertainment to do here in Vegas. That's not just gambling and drinking, although some drinking. There's some cool bars that are very thematic. So those are my thoughts. Some quick, some tips that I think will be helpful. Number one, I think you should come early. I think try to get 2 o'clock or close to 2 o'clock. Sometime between 2 and 6 is what I would say. It's definitely slower at that time. You could blow through the houses real quick without a long wait. Staffing doesn't seem to be an issue early on in the houses. So like the first night, we had a terrible experience where they closed Texas Chainsaw Massacre like over an hour early before the 10 o'clock close. Last night, they seemed to be trying to correct that, but instead what happened was there were long stretches of time where the houses were closed. I don't think they have 2 sets of staff, 2 sets of scare actors per house. I think they go on break and the house closes for a while. So that happens, and they may not be totally honest with you outside, although they were better about it last night. The first night they were not. They may hold you outside. They may then hold you in the interior queue. You may end up being there for a while. Just be advised. But I would say you want to come between 2 and 6 if you're getting the unlimited ticket. If you buy an unlimited ticket and come after 6, I think it's a waste of time. Do not bother, because the lines can get pretty long and you're still accessing the general queue. But if you really want to get several runs on each house, between 2 and 6 p.m., unlimited ticket, and you'll have a good time. Yeah, again, after 6, the unlimited ticket, like we got hosed kind of on the first day. The unlimited ticket, we did our houses up front. We went and ate, and then trying to do the houses again the second time was a mess. Between they closed for a while or they never reopened, things closed early. So yeah, just be advised. Not going to tell you to buy one of those like 8:48. Don't buy anything after 6 o'clock. You're really taking a chance at that point. Get in early. Crowds are low. Have a good time, and then do something else with the rest of your evening, or stay till 10 if you want to talk to the scare actors and storytellers. And I think you'll have a good time with it. I forgot a scare. See, I'm still thinking through all these scare actors. There is in the Texas area, a Chainsaw Massacre, there is a Texas cheerleader with a knife that pops out at people. They think that's who she is. I don't know. We couldn't tell. But I don't think she's from IP or anything. I don't know. But she's there, hanging out. I think now I've covered all of the individual roaming scare actors. She doesn't really roam. She has a little pocket she's in between Exorcist and Texas Chainsaw and the Boiler Bar. But yeah, I mean, we'll be back. Probably not anytime soon. I mean, if they change it a house or two, sure. If they do seasonal updates, sure. But like I've seen it, I'm good. I'm ready to go to real Horror Nights now, and But I think this works. If you happen to be in Vegas, it's fun, and if not, it's a good excuse for between Horror Nights events to come take a side trip a weekend and scratch that itch, as I've now said 3 times. But so those are our thoughts on it. It's a solid offering, maybe a little below expectations, but still solid. Yeah. Well, thanks for watching. Please hit the like button if you enjoyed this video. Please subscribe for more. Don't forget there is that food review video where we tried every single specialty cocktail and all of the food at Premier House for Horror Unleashed in Vegas. You can check out our website for lots more content. We have posts with every single merchandise item that's available. We have videos, walkthroughs of each and every of the 4 houses here on the channel as well. The full Jack and Chance show from the venue and a full walking tour of the entire space. So make sure you check all that out. Subscribe for more, and we'll see you in the fog.